Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Starting a beautiful day, coming closer to the first day of the month of Sivan, and consequently to the sixth day of Sivan, which is the day when the Torah was given. Morning, Dovi. So let's start the day off with giving charity as usual. Tzion b'mishpat tapara, the Jewish people were redeemed only by tzedakah, b'shabbat tzedakah. Here we go. 1 second. Turn this off over here. 1 second. There we go. Good. Charity. All right. Now let's begin. Right, so let's resume where we were, where we left off yesterday. We're talking about the giving of the Torah. God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. And when he gave the Torah to the Jewish people, there's an introductory sentence before the 10 Commandments in the Torah. Now, the whole Torah was written by God, right? Here we go. Oh, Shalom Abba. So the whole Torah was written, good morning. So the Torah was written by God. Here we have, before the Torah is given, right in you can look in the book of Exodus, in the fourth chapter, whatever is not the fourth chapter, what is it? The book of Exodus. It's called the Yitro. And there it talks about how the Jews received the Torah, and it tells what the 10 Commandments were. Right before it says the 10 Commandments, right? The first 10 Commandments, I am God that took you out of, God, your God that took you out of Egypt. I'm God, your God that took you out of. Right before that, it says this very cryptic sort of sentence. It says that God Elohim, that God, which is the name of God, which implies contraction or limitation. Ani Hashem, let me get this point over here. It says, I am God, Vayedaber Elohim. And God said all of these words to say, and then it says the 10 Commandments. Anichi Hashem Elokecha. And so at first glance, this is totally unnecessary. It should have just said, Vayedaber Elohim Anochi, that God said, I am God, your God. That's what everybody heard. What does it mean, all of these words? So the Rebbe said, all means all of the explanations of the Torah, every opinion that's written in the Talmud, every opinion that's written in the law books that come afterwards that explain the Talmud, every word that's in the Midrash, it's called Torah Shebal Peh. Every single word was all revealed, given at Mount Sinai. That's what it says. Call all means everything. Eila means these. It was revealed. That you could point to it and say that these are the words that God said. And that's why he uses the name Elohim, because everything was concentrated, encapsulated in these 10 commandments. The 10 commandments contain all of the other 613 commandments and all the explanations and all of the commentaries that were made by, of course, genuine rabbis. It's all there. And in the future generations, all of the great rabbis just pulled from this. They pulled from this revelation of God. In other words, the word that they say are really the words of God. Huh? Now, all this was revealed at Mount Sinai. So, it was revealed in a very concentrated way that we can't comprehend it. That's why it says that the souls jumped out of their bodies. Excuse me. It says the souls of all the Jews jumped out of their bodies. The revelation was so intense. It was so intense. So they say, what was intense? It was just a lot of books, a lot of writings. No, those books are pure godliness. When it comes down to us in these letters that we read in a book, we don't feel the godliness in it anymore. That's what Moshiach is going to do, that we'll feel the godliness in every word of all of the rabbis in the Talmud as well. So the written Torah and the oral Torah were all given. Okay. So the Rebbe asked the question, this doesn't seem to make any sense. I mean, at Mount Sinai, it was an amazingly intense experience. All of the Torah was revealed. Also, all of this, God himself revealed himself. God himself. So if you want to reveal the essence of God, why does it have to be in such a mundane way? What are the 10 Commandments? don't kill, don't steal, keep Shabbat, honor your parents, right? Honor your parents. Don't lust after things. Don't give false testimony. Don't take the name of God in vain. Now, these are pretty simple things. It should have said, when God gave the Torah, it should have said like these tremendously esoteric, complicated, mystical, concealed words that no one can understand. But it's just completely, convoluted numbers and words and signs. Oh, so I get all those sorts of weird signs. What does those mean? Right? What does it mean? This is so amazing. This is amazing. And then give the explanations. No, of all these explanations, what does it mean? Don't kill. What does it mean? Don't kill. Does it maybe means don't kill bacteria? Maybe it means don't kill time. Don't waste time. Who knows what it means? So there's explanations and explanations. What happens if a person does kill? So there's different punishments, and then there has to be witnesses, and then there has to be a warning. All these tremendously convoluted laws about things that are talked about in every society. So what's the point of the Torah if it's so amazing and so concealed and godly and intense and above the spiritual and et cetera, et cetera? Why did it come down into such simple day-to-day terms that everybody in the world knows? I think the most primitive societies have, it's if you want to have a society functional, you have to have principles like those, like the Ten Commandments. Something like, maybe a little bit different. So it says like this, that in order to receive the Torah, in order to get the godliness of the Torah, there had to be the counting of the Omer. And the counting of the Omer was really set 49 days between going out of Egypt, the holiday of Passover, and the receiving of the Torah. That's Shavuot. Shavuot is the 50th day. And counting of the Omer really is a very, personal, intimate experience. That's supposed to be. You're supposed to really refine all of the emotions and the qualities of your soul. That's why it's 49, 7 times 7. According to Kabbalah, there are 7 emotional aspects of the soul, and each one contains 7. So that's 7. So you have to, essentially, and all of this comes from, this is the first day of this counting of the Omer. The Omer was standing stalks of grain, and you had to cut them off. In this case, it was barley. They cut them down. It says also you have to cut down, you have to start by cutting down your egotism, your false egotism. Cut it down, and then you can start refining yourself. Huh? You have to humble yourself. That's what we got up to yesterday. Now let's explain this. In a no doubt, my results known what the rabbis say. Get this over here, make it bigger. There we go. It's known what the rabbis say, Shenimnu v'gomu, that the rabbis voted and they concluded Shetalmud Gadol Mimaisa, that learning Torah is greater than doing the commandments. The Omer, and it says, because of the sentence, Kol Chaftzim Lo Yishvu Ba. It's a sentence in Proverbs. It says, all of the things in the world, even the most spiritual things, are not equal to the Torah, one word of the Torah. Even spiritual things, the most spiritual, amazing commandments, whatever you do, is nothing compared to one word of the Torah. All the commandments come from the Torah. But in the Jerusalem Talmud, it says, there's an argument. One opinion says, afilu l'davar echad, one word of the Torah, ein kol mitzvos kadai. All of the commandments are not equal even to one word of the Torah. But there's another opinion. In another a book which is called Midrash Rabbah, Rabbot Noach, it says, Ein Sof Kelet, etc., 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 etc. It says, and the same thing is found in another place, that the Torah is the main thing. Even one word of the Torah, it's the word of God, and all the commandments just come from it. But in the Talmud, the first chapter of Moed Katan, it says, it brings a contradiction. It brings a contradiction. You want to say, according to the sentence in Mishlei, that the Torah is the most valuable thing because it says that everything in the world, even the most heavenly spiritual things, are not equal to one word of the Torah. Well, Ramo Karai Adade. Let's throw another sentence against that one. Kativ, it is written, Kol Cheftzim Lo Yishvu Bo, like we just brought, even the things of heaven. And there's another sentence that says, Kol Chefetzecha, all of your things Lo Yishvu Bo. Everything that you have is not equal to one word of the Torah. This implies what? That what you have, all of your riches, all of your possessions, all of your success is not equal to one word of the Torah. Yours, but not the things of heaven. That the commandments are more valuable than the word of the Torah. So what's the most valuable thing? The word of the Torah or the commandments? Now you have to remember what we're saying here, according to Judaism, that the Torah and the commandments are not, how do you say, the man-made. They weren't agreed upon by the rabbis or by Moses. Right? The Moses went up on Mount Sinai and he had some sort of a telecommunication with the rabbis down and says, how is it going? It's okay. Up to now, it's all right. The Jewish, they believe it. Let's have a couple more thunders. Just 1 second. That's it. That's it, thunders. Okay. Now let's talk about what type of laws we're going to make. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're making up the laws, and then they got them all right, and then they transferred. And then Moses came down, and he said, "I have just spoken to the Lord." And the Lord said, "Don't eat milk and meat together. Don't eat," right? And then the rabbis made it up. He says, "No, you can think that if you want. You can think that, but that would not have held in Judaism for very long. The Jewish people are very, how do you say, skeptical people. They're very skeptical people. They like to, investigate everything very well. It might have held up for a little while, but eventually someone would have cracked and, told the secret. Really, we made the whole thing up. The Jewish people, they claim at least that all of them, 3 million of them, got out of Egypt, and they all saw God give the Torah. And when God gave the Torah, the first 2 commandments, it says that their souls jumped out of their bodies. It was just so intense, they couldn't take it. And they knew that this is who Moses was talking to. This is a thing you could not copy. Even though that did not have very much of an effect on them, because as soon as they thought Moses was gone, they all worshiped the golden calf, which is the first 2 commandments down the drain, right? I am God that took you out of Egypt. Don't worship any other gods. And they worshiped the golden calf. Okay, but nevertheless, they knew intellectually that every word of the Torah is the word of God, and every commandment is the will of God. They knew it. Everybody knew it. Okay, so in other words, the Torah is not anything real. It's not religious. It's not a book of spiritual inspiration from people who were, inspired spiritually or had revelations, whatever. It's not that. It's God himself is speaking. And the commandments are God's will. And so now God is above time. God creates time. So the commandments and the commandments and the words of the Torah are infinitely more real than all time and all being put together. Now, which is more valuable? So it seems that there's an argument. One opinion says that the commandments are the most valuable, and the other one says, no, the Torah is more valuable than all the commandments. So there's 2 sentences from the Torah. They contradict each other. The Mashani and the Talmud, it answers, Kan b'mitzvahs, the commandments, which is possible to do them by means of other people. If you're learning Torah and there's a commandment that someone else can do, like taking your first fruits up to Jerusalem or something, so somebody else can do it. The Kan b'mitzvahs she'ef shar, here's a commandment that no one else can do. To put on tefillin, no one can put on tefillin on their arm for you. You have to put it on your arm. So if it's a commandment that no one else can do, that you have to do it, then you have to stop learning Torah. So I'll call upon him. So at least the mitzvahs, the commandments, which are possible to do them by means of others, as I'm sorry, they negate lifnei Talmud Torah. Call a mitzvahs are not equal to even one. All the commandments are not even equal to one letter of the Torah. Right? So if it's a commandment that other people can do, then other people do it, because learning Torah is the most important thing in the world. Other people can also learn Torah, right? Other people can also learn Torah. No, that's the one commandment, the commandment of learning Torah, that pushes away all of the other commandments, right? He says, well, not exactly. It pushes away all the other commandments that can be done by other people. So learning Torah, you have to learn Torah. If there's someone else can do this commandment, whatever it is, then they should do the commandment for you. But if it's a commandment that no one else can do, then you have to do it. You have to stop learning Torah. At first glance, it's not understood. Isn't Talmud Torah who esek beperish bira mitzvahs? 1 second. Learning Torah, it only explains the commandments. Ketzad tiyasiyata v'loma yigdal koach ma'alas osek Torah. How can it be that it's greater to learn Torah than it is to do the commandments? If it's a commandment someone else can do, then someone else to do it. Else should do it. I have to learn Torah. Says the Rebbe, 1 second. That what if a person, let's say, he just sits and learns Torah, doesn't do any commandments, just sits and learns Torah? What about that? He says, no, that's bad news. That's a bad news. If a person never does any commandments, then it's not good. He's learning because the whole purpose of the Torah is to tell us, explain the commandments, right? 613 commandments. That's from the Torah. It's not a side thing. How can it be that the explanation of the commandments is more important than the commandments itself? It's almost like saying a person goes to learn to be a brain surgeon, but he doesn't want to operate. He just wants to learn. That's more important than operating. The doctor, someone is sick, and we have to have an operation. I'm sorry, I'm learning. But there's all these people that need operations. They can't. It's not my problem, right? I'm learning. How can it even be? How can you ever think for 1 second that learning is more important than action, even if it's a commandment somebody else can do? Right? The most important thing is to do. How could it be that Bira mitzvahs, that the explanation of the commandments is more important than the actual doing of the commandment? Could go in, for instance, hafresha truma. For instance, like I said before, you have produce, you have to take let's say 1/50th of your produce, you have to give to them 100th of the produce, right? Another person could do it. You don't have to do it. Bishvil esuk Torah, but you shouldn't do it. You don't have to do it. You should sit and learn Torah. Why? Panai, because if you take your produce up to Jerusalem, for instance, or you give it to a Kohen, it's going to waste half an hour of your learning Torah. And you can't waste your time for learning Torah. Learning Torah is the most important thing. How can that possibly be? Learning Torah is just an explanation of the commandments. And, and these commandments can be done by somebody else. And even more, once you learn the laws of a commandment, you know the laws already. You know the laws. So learning the Torah about these laws is just repeating it. How could that possibly be more important than doing a commandment? Okay, someone else can do the commandment. Yes, it's true. It's a commandment someone else can do. But why should I relearn something if I personally could do an action? Right? I'm giving the tithe from this crops, whatever. That's a commandment of God. I'm doing something. And learning Torah, I'm not really accomplishing anything in the world. I already know these things. How can it possibly be? Okay. So now we're in a question. The question we're asking is, there are a lot of times when learning Torah is more important than doing the commandments. So learning Torah is the most important thing. How can that possibly be? In Israel, there's a big point of contention in Israel, because the Israelis originally, the ones that founded the state of Israel, they said that nothing is holy. Nothing is holy. The Jewish people aren't holy. The land of Israel is not holy. All the commandments aren't holy. The Torah is not holy. What's the purpose? The army, that's the ultimate, that you say, expression of your humanity, even of your Judaism, is you fight in the army. You're protecting the Jews. It's not going to be any more Holocausts. We're fighting against Hitler. We're going to fight. We're going to do it. And the religious people said, no, we got to learn Torah. So learning Torah, that's exactly what happened. That's why Hitler killed so many people, because you guys sat and learned Torah. Right? You sat and learned Torah. If you picked up a gun, then you would have protected the Jews, etc. That's ridiculous. You can't do that. Right? So the religious people say, okay, listen, there's already an army. You guys are already fighting, right? And learning Torah is tremendously important. We can't have everybody just fighting in the army. You have to have people learning Torah. And the others say, what are you talking about? Why do you have to have people? Why do you have to have people? Let the old people learn Torah. What do you have to learn Torah? It says, no, Talmud Torah kaneged kulam. When you learn Torah, it's more important than anything. Is that so? So it says, yeah, here we see. Here it says that, yes, if it's a commandment that someone else can do, let other people do it. Learning Torah is tremendously important. That's the question. How can it possibly be that learning Torah is more important? Even more, it says up in heaven, there's a heavenly court, says a yeshiva in heaven, and they learn Torah. How can it be that our learning Torah is so important in heaven? Let them learn in heaven. What is the importance of learning Torah in this world? Now let's just make a little reset over here. Reset. We have to understand something that, okay, one reason for saying that all this Torah and this learning and doing the commandments and all this religious stuff is like second at best, is that comes from the idea that we're here in this world, you do Torah, you do commandments, because that gets you into heaven. That gets you into heaven. You're going to go to heaven if you learn Torah and you do commandments, right? The teachings of Chassidut come to tell you that, I mean, if Abraham would hear people say this, he would turn over in his grave, which that would be a nice thing if he, came back to life. But the whole essence of Judaism, what is that you don't think about heaven. The whole essence of creation is you don't think about heaven. Man was created to make, Adam, first man, was created to make this world perfect. That's what Abraham realized. Everyone else was worshiping idols in order to go to heaven to get some sort of benefits. And Abraham was only thinking about, how can I do what God wants? And what does God want? That this world should be perfected. So now that's the question. It's not what gets you into heaven, or is there such a thing as heaven? And the people who are the normal, whatever, Zionists, they say, forget about heaven. We have this world, this physical world. Nothing is holy. There's no spiritual, just this physical world. And then the religious people say, no, we got to go to heaven. Heaven is the main thing. And Judaism says that those people that say this world is the most important, they're right. But you can't say it's not holy. That's what true holiness is, to reveal the essence of God in this world. Now the question is how do you do it? Revealing the essence of God in this world, is it done mainly through the commandments, or is it done mainly through learning Torah? How do we reveal the essence of God in this world to make this world perfect? To make this world into like Holy of Holies, but an act of Holy of Holies, not like the Holy of Holies in the Holy Temple. They didn't do anything. They just burned incense or something. Every detail of this world is supposed to be Holy of Holies, because God is creating everything. God is creating everything. So your family and your car and your food and your house and your dog and whatever you have a dog. I don't know. Not everybody. Dog is not always permissible to own a dog. Everything you've got. You have a dog is holy. You have everything that's done according to the Torah becomes super holy, higher than all the heavens. Even the souls will come from heaven and they'll come back into this world, the raising of the dead. This world is the main thing. So now the question is, what accomplishes this? Learning Torah or doing the commandments? What happened? I jumped down somehow. I got too excited. Oh. Yes. So one second. 1 minute. Okay. The Yuvan Indian said, first of all, we're going to understand this. When we say, note it's known, Shebechayos v'or ein sof, that in the life force and in the light of God, the creative force of God, Hamachaya umehava, which enlivens and creates all of the worlds, Miresh Kol Dargin, from the highest levels until the lowest levels, there are two aspects. Okay, now we're getting into the world. Again, that's what I just finished telling you. The purpose of man is to make the world perfect. Okay, the world, this physical world, but there's a lot of worlds. There's a lot of spiritual worlds. Read in the writings of Isaiah, especially in Ezekiel, and he saw all these angels, and there's the throne of God in the face of the lion, in the face of the eagle, the face of the man. And God spoke, and he's spoken in these higher levels and higher levels. You read Kabbalistic books, tremendous detail and all these upper spiritual worlds. So the whole business is a creation of God. God is creating everything all the time, constantly. As we've said at least 500 times, God, in that sense, we cannot say that God exists. God's existence is absolutely nothing in the most vague, what a spiritual way of any other existence. God creates all existence. God creates the spiritual. He creates us. He's creating me and you right now. Says there's two aspects of this creation. And this is what's going to be attached to the Torah and the commandments. There's two aspects of creation. One is how God fills the world. What he means fills the world, that everything is different. God creates everything. Everything has its limitation, its definition, its place, its nature. Everything is different. Every angel is different. Every power is different. Every force is different. Every human is different. Every animal is different. Every plant is different. Every rock is different. Every atom is different. Right? Every place is different. Every second is different. That's called Mamali Kolmin. It's called how God fills all the worlds. Liot Chayot Malubash, that there is life force and creative force and filling all of the different worlds and all of the creations in the world. And this is done by an amazing chain of creation. In cause and effect. The upper worlds seem to be the cause of the worlds below them. And those worlds which are below them, they seem to be the cause of worlds which are even below them. And that's why it's called a chain. But Tzimtzumim Rabim, and God, so to speak, conceals his reality, creates all these different levels of reality. It says when an angel sees an angel which is above him, that level which is above, they all scream. That's why the angels are all burning up and things like that, because they feel a level. We don't feel any reality above us. We think that we're the ultimate reality. This world is the lowest of the worlds. Even hell is higher than this world. In hell, at least they know that there's God. In this physical world, we think this is it. I'm God. In any case, there's all these multitudes of worlds above us. In general, it's in four general worlds. It's called dimensions of reality. The highest is Atzilut, and then below that is Bria, and then below that is Yetzira, and below that is this physical world, Asiya, which that's also divided. And each one of these worlds is divided up. Tzimtzumim Rabin, many contractions and articulations. I like that word, articulations. Rabin, the Yeridat Madregos, and coming down from level to level. And that's what comes down into this world. Do we have any example? How do you know this is true? It says, Mi basari echazeh Elokai, from my flesh I grasp God. I think this is a sentence in Job. From my flesh, from me, if I look at me, I can understand God. Man is created in God's image, right? Just like there is intellect is put into emotions, and emotions, they go into thought, and thought eventually becomes speech, and speech comes down and becomes action. Midrag level after level until it comes down to thought and speech and action and the four senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling. And the power of life, which is in the intellect and in the emotions, and from the heart, the emotions, it comes down to all of the limbs, hamakablim, that they from all of each limb receives according to its ability. Betchunatam liot ze rosh, one is the head and the other is the foot. All of this is Seder Ishtalshut. Okay, so let's get this. What's it talking about? You look at a person, right? A human being. So you look at a person, you don't see that person's stomach. You don't see his heart. You don't see the person's emotions. You see a person, a living person, that's just standing there, sleeping. The person's asleep. A sleeping person is tremendously complicated. Tremendously complicated. Physically complicated, right? Then there's all these different systems. There's a circulatory system and a nervous system. And said, that's what about personal? People have goals, they have dreams, they have emotions, they have intellect, they have the willpower. You don't see any of this. It's all concealed inside of a person. Well, the same way it is in the world. This world that we're looking at, that's, so to speak, the body, if you want to call it, of the Creator. This is the outside. It's pretty miraculous. The world is pretty miraculous. Nowhere near as miraculous as the spiritual world. The spiritual world, that's like the intestines, the leg, the heart. And then there's God's personality, right? God wants this, God wants that. Then there's God's intellect, so to speak. That's the Torah, right? With God's thought, the God plan. Okay, so just as we are existent and we are very complicated, so it's the same God. Liot mitpashet koach hanefesh, that the soul fills the whole body, that it should fill all the limbs of the body from the power and the life force which is drawn to them, umakablim, and receives each and every in each aspect. Lefi must go according to its constitution and its nature. Right, the hand expresses life force different than the eye. The eye is different from the leg. But this is only the, how do you say, the revelation of the power of the soul. So somebody's thing is open over here and it's making all sorts of noise. And let us see if we can find who this is. Who's the culprit? Maybe it's me. 1 minute. Maybe it's you, Abba. Could be. 1 minute. No. Maybe it's Miriam Gibel. I don't know. There we go. Oh, okay. So, good. Now we are. All right. So now we have to imagine this, right? Listen, it's a commandment. It's a commandment, first of all, to love God. To love God. How can you love God? There has to be something valued. You can't love something if you don't value it at all. There has to be something good. So we have to love. It's a commandment to love God. Not only it's a commandment to love God, it's a commandment to love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. Different levels of loving God. How can you love God if you don't have any appreciation of God? So first of all, you have to believe that God exists. God, because you're not going to see God. Then after you believe that God exists, then start to look and see, really, could it be the world is a big creation of God? Ooh, it's pretty amazing. When you think about that the world is being created by God, and then you start to understand, well, what about the life force which is inside of everything, right? The life force which is enlivening a crow, which is enlivening a flower, right? The life force is even more beautiful and amazing than the thing itself. It says that the soul itself, okay. So the soul is not divided up. For instance, a human being, your soul is not divided up into sight and hearing. Kamakokos pratim. Elas shekol kokos, all of the power of the soul, kalulim umitachtim, and they are united. Ve'en olim b'shon koach prati klal. Right? If you look at a person is alive, right? George is alive. George is alive. There's a soul, which that soul is George's soul. And from that soul is enlivened his eyes and his nose and his mouth. And if the eyes are working properly, then it receives power from the soul. And says, so if so, the soul is not divided up into powers. Nevertheless, kokos, the powers of the soul, seeing, hearing, they are Roshem, and mainly the power of wisdom, chachma, faith, and intellect. That's what divides humans from animals. Shemit pashet mi'anefesh, that comes from the soul. This is drawn from the essence of the soul. An essence of the soul. Therefore, the essence of the soul is called nefesh hamaskelet. Your soul is called nefesh hamaskelet. It is called the, how do you say, the conscious, it's called the conscious soul, your power of consciousness. What is the power of consciousness? That you're aware. Al Shem koach hasechel, because of the power of intellect which spreads from it. Shu rosh ve'ikar kol hakochot kulam. This is the beginning of everything. Okay, so we see that the power of awareness, of consciousness, that is the essence of man. That's the essence of man, consciousness. And from this consciousness comes how it is, how do you say, articulated, how it comes out. This person is a mathematician, and this person is a musician, and this person is he is a speaker, and this person he can work at a gas station. His intellect works. Even though it is that the soul is not got any revelation of a power of, next page. One minute. The soul itself hasn't got any, let's say, IQ, but nevertheless, since she's pashtas, when it comes into the body and it's spread out into the different powers of the body, then everything is included in the body, and it was concealed. So maybe let's say something like, but it's not a good example, but it's something like electricity, right? Electricity. Electricity is expressed according to the what is it called? The device that the electricity comes into. So if the electricity comes into my washing machine, then it does something different than if it comes into my computer. So something like that is in the soul. The soul, when it comes into the body, so then it reveals itself, a human soul, then it reveals itself to what type of intellect, what type of personality. When it comes into the body, then it's revealed from what's concealed. All the potential powers of the soul are revealed, but nevertheless, it comes from the essence of the soul. And therefore, even after the soul is expressed in the body, intellect, in a person's body, harihu mitached is united with the person mamish, really, until it's called the soul, the nefesh al shmo, nefesh hamaskilos, until it's called, that soul is called the intellectual soul. Okay, that's what it's got to do with me. So let's say Shakespeare writes a book, so that's the wisdom of Shakespeare. So what's it got to do with Shakespeare? Shakespeare is a person, he had a life, and these are the words of Shakespeare. No, it came from him. This is him. So if so, the deeds that a person does and the intellect that a person has, this shines on the person. Who is the person? The person is the essence of his soul. Before any of this comes out, before any of his intellect comes out. Same thing is also by God. Same thing is also by God. That's the point we want to get to. By God, it says, that God enlivens all the worlds. That's how God fills all the worlds. It is written, God, you are alone. You made the heavens. You made the heavens of the heavens. What does it mean? That God, you are alone means that God is unique. And how do you say number one is not the word. Unique is a good word. And another word is alone. Yachid means he is unique. Yachid means he is alone and he's unique. The love, the islach tzedek yediyah, that God, one second. So God has all these qualities, and we pray to God these qualities. We want God to be kind. We want God to be strong. We want God should help us, that God should provide for us, that God should give health, that God should build the holy temple, that God should be, all these aspects of God, that's not God? It says, of course that's God. What's the question? But that's not the essence of God. Just like a human being has a soul, and the soul, from the soul come all these qualities and abilities, but nevertheless, that's those qualities and abilities, that's not the person himself. That's not the essence. That's revelations of the essence. The same thing by God. God has these aspects, but God is not one of these aspects. Lav mikol inon midos kolal. God, we cannot say that God is kind. We say God has kindness. But nevertheless, Atas is the Shemayim. Nevertheless, God is creating the heavens. So once again, the heavens are being created by God. Of course, God is creating me and you. Yes, of course he is. So that's the essence of God. Is no. You can't worship the heavens. You can't worship a person. You can't worship that. That's only aspects of God. This is just one second. 2 seconds ago, you said that that's the essence of God. It says no, that's an expression of God's essence. The Ainu, he's pashtus gadolos. This is the spreading out, an expression of God's greatness. How God is great, above ein kates without any end, and below without any stopping. This is only the revelation of God alone. This is just a ray of godliness. Like it says, God, your kingship is the kingship of all of the worlds. That you're a king, God, you're above everything, is that comes into all the worlds. This is only the name of God. And we have to remember the name of God is not the essence of God, but it's not separate from God. There's not God and his name. There's just like an aspect of Benazkir Shimcha that we mentioned God's name. Hainu, Kamo Shem Adam, just like the name of a person, that you call the person by his name. And when you call the person by his name, he answers and he turns to the person who calls. Kach kasiva. Also, it says Vayisha Hashem el Hevel. It says that God turned to Cain and Abel. Right? Cain killed Abel. It says before Cain killed Abel, that's Hevel. So because Hevel made sacrifices to God, and God was pleased by Hevel's sacrifice. So it says Vayisha Hashem, that God turned to Hevel, Vel Minchato, and to his sacrifice. Shepona, in other words, that God was pleased that he turned and was drawn life force to the creations. That's why the reason for the flood. God said, I don't want to keep these people alive anymore. That's what it says, Yachid Che'olamim Melech. That's what it says, that God is Yachid. He's alone. But the life of the worlds, Che'olamim, is Melech, that God is a king. How does God enliven the worlds if God is one and he can't be divided? It says God has all these aspects that they're also infinite. God himself is Yachid Yuchad. God is alone and he is totally special. There's no existence like God. But in order for him to enliven the worlds, named the Chayas V'Kayim Ha'olam, in order to enliven these worlds, me and you and all the spiritual, the angels and everything, this comes from an aspect of God, which is called God's kingship. We haven't gotten to the Torah and the commandments yet. This drawing down of God's oneness, this is in a level, from level to level. The world of Atzilut, this is God is totally one, totally unified. Like, for instance, the unified of the essence of the soul with the essence of awareness with awareness. That's why we say that God is alone, Gadol Hashem Ma'od, that God is great, he's praised infinitely, but the God's greatness, you can't possibly understand. God's way of understanding, you can't fathom what this is. Afterwards comes the world, the angels, the burning up angels. If there's 10,000, there's thousands and thousands and 10,000s of angels in every camp, and there's an infinite number of camps. It says that in every camp of angels, there's 10,000s of 10,000s, which means what, 100 million angels or something like that. It says that that's in each camp, but there's no number. You can't count how many encampments of angels there are. And there's even more separation. It comes down to Mona Mispar, also the angels, all the stars. What about all the atoms? So to speak, that God takes out from his unity and he expresses it in these worlds. But that does not in any way detract from the oneness of God. That's all this we're talking about, and we'll do this tomorrow. This is talking about how God fills the worlds. But there's another level of godliness, which is called how God surrounds the worlds. What does it mean he surrounds the worlds? That we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. That's the aspect of God which does not change. It does not make a multitude of worlds. That it's the same everywhere. What is that? We'll talk about that, God willing, tomorrow. How is this related to the Torah and the commandments? We'll talk about that also. Talk about that. All right.